Hey everybody, Brad here at BTPA. Today we're going to take a deeper look into MIDI switching on a redundant quad cortex rig or any direct rig. We did a previous video showcasing how to set this sort of rig up, and this will cover how to use MIDI and implement it in switching from wireless input A and wireless input B to the main and spare quad cortex. Here we go. Okay, so again, we made a video previously showcasing how to build this sort of rig, but just a quick rundown for time's sake is that there's a main quad cortex here, as you can see. Then there is a spare quad cortex here. Now both are running in stereo, a left out and right out, and but they're only eating up 2 channels on the band's input list. And again, that's all covered on the previous video, but briefly, that's done with the radial backtrack unit, which is up here. This is the Voodoo Lab control switcher, which essentially makes that radial backtrack unit MIDI. And then here is an AB switcher, this is different from the last video. This is the Lehle, I'm not sure if I'm saying it right, but Lehle 3-at-1 SGOS. And what this does is it takes both wireless input A and wireless input B, and it outputs it to each of these. So it can switch between A and B input and then main and spare output, which is, obviously ideal. But the main difference between what we showed last time and this is that this is MIDI switch. This is MIDI capable. So it can take MIDI commands, which is huge. So we're going to showcase how to program MIDI switchers to switch all of this with a single button and make your life as a tech or player pretty easy. So just for good measure here, this is the back of the rack. The IOs are all here, the out, left, and right, obviously because it switches between the main and the spare. A MIDI input, which hits a MIDI through box, the main through and the spare through in case you need to send MIDI commands further on or do whatever, and the rest of the connections. But all that we're mainly concerned about here is this MIDI input, which is going to be coming from the output of whatever MIDI controller you're using. So just to give you guys a scope of how easy it is to set up, we're going to use a couple different MIDI controllers just to showcase how this is done. So I guess to start, you need to set up your devices on different MIDI channels. So in this scenario, and again, we'll have tables in our blog posts or the description just kind of showing you the relevant or pertinent commands and numbers and values and things like that. But just for the video's sake, the Lehle 3-at-1 ABY is set to MIDI channel 2, and the Voodoo Lab control switcher is set to MIDI channel 3. We have separate videos showcasing how to set those MIDI channels up. But again, for the sake of the video and time, MIDI channel 2 refers to the ABY, the Lehle, and the MIDI channel 3 is the Voodoo Lab control switcher. We are going to program this using the Boss ES5, just because, in my opinion, it is the easier of them to set up. I just on the fly, using the interface on here. So right now, the way it sits is that button 1 is wireless input A and the main quad cortex. This is wireless input 2 and the main quad cortex. This is wireless input A and the spare quad cortex. And this is wireless input B and the spare quad cortex. And then just for grins here, we programmed patch 5 to mute everything. Maybe you want to call the show and get home in time for the new episode of Melrose. Totally get it. So we'll look at the commands and then we'll show you all the buttons and things changing colors and all that good stuff. So obviously you have to program, which we'll show as well for the program changes, the program commands being sent to the Lehle, because that's what it sees. If it does accept CC, I haven't been able to figure that out. I don't believe it does, because the manual only says in the Lehle that it accepts PC messages. So that's what we're rolling with. Okay, so patch 1, wireless A, Quad Cortex main. So hit edit patch, or hit edit, go enter for patch. Sorry, I'm doing this upside down. Anyways, then you hit up the patch MIDI 1, and this is what we're going to use, patch MIDI 1 on all these, just to be uniform, is what we are going to use to send the program changes to the Lehle. So you hit enter. You define the MIDI channel, and again, as we said, that the Lehle is MIDI channel 2. Scroll over to program change. This one, we have program change 1. So you hit right, and then it'll make the changes. So that's for that. Okay, so now we told the Lehle to use input 1, output 1, or input A, output 1, as it's labeled on the unit. So then we have to go over to patch MIDI 2. You want to hit enter there. And this is you need to tell the Voodoo Lab control switcher that we're using A, which is the main Quad Cortex's output. So channel 3, that's what we define the control switcher as. Then you go over to the values. So stock, the control switcher comes with value 80 being switch 1, 81 switch 2, 82 switch 3, and 83 switch 4. So 80 is where we've got, switch 1 is where the AB function is set to. And remember that, and this is referring to our last video, that the backtrack switcher, the foot switch is reverse. So it's a reverse polarity switch. So you need to set the Voodoo Lab control switcher to do that. And again, that is showcased in the other video. So we're not doing that right now. It's already done. So CC value is 80, defining switch 1, and the value is 0, because we don't need it to switch to B. We need it to just be to A. So we're good. Now the next step, and this is just if you're going to program a mute switch, you need to do this preemptively. So exit there. We'll go to patch MIDI 3. You're going to hit enter. And again, you define channel 3. Then you go to CC number 81 because it's switch number 2 is a mute, and the value is 0 because you don't want to mute anything. But again, this is important if you're going to program a mute switch, because then if you go from the mute to switch 1, it will unmute. It's not going to be muted anymore. Okay, so you write, executes, and that's wireless A, Quad Cortex main. So now, how do you get to the B? Wireless B output is the Quad Cortex main. So you're going to hit edit, enter, and then scroll over to patch MIDI 1. You're going to enter that. And again, this is what we set up. The MIDI channel is 2, and then the program change command is 2. Then right here we have patch MIDI 2. And again, this is just what we need to tell the Voodoo Lab control switcher to tell the backtrack to leave it on output A. So that CC command 80, value is 0. And same as last time, if you're going to do the mute switch, all the settings are the same. 81, value 0. And again, you'd hit write, it writes it. So now, switch number 3. This is going to be wireless A, Quad Cortex spare. So you will hit edit, edit, patch MIDI 1, and this is what we have set up program change 3 to do. It tells the Lehle that you want input 1, or input B and output 2. So that's what, or I'm sorry, you want input A and output 2. So program change 3 does. Then you go over to MIDI 2 and hit enter, and that's MIDI channel 3, because now we have to tell the control switcher that you want output B, or the Quad Cortex spare. So CC value is 80 because that's switch 1, and then we just made the value 120, signifying that it needs to switch the thing, or the relay, so that's what it does. And again, you're not muting it, so the settings for that are all the same as before. You'd hit right, done. 4 is this is going to be output B, or I'm sorry, input B, so wireless B, and output 2. And to do that, you hit edit, enter the patch, go to MIDI 1, enter. Again, that's channel 2 because Lehle is channel 2, and this is program change 4, which is telling the Lehle that you want to use input B and output 2. So the Quad Cortex spare is what's receiving the input, and wireless B is hitting it. Okay, and now just for grins here, we'll this is show number 5. This is just what we have programmed for the mute, just in case you guys feel like doing that. So you hit edit, enter, patch MIDI 1, channel 3, because it's the control switcher. And again, 81 because it's switch number 2. So you go to 81, and then the value we just set it as 120 to turn it on, and that's it. You're right, and you're good. Okay, so now the next switcher we're going to show this is the Mastermind LT, and this is kind of I guess the Cadillac of switching this thing. You know, if you want to program it to do just the inputs and output changes, it'll do that, but you can also have different programs, you know, and presets being called up on the Quad Cortex. Again, this is, maybe you don't want to do that newfangled automatic stuff from laptops, and have the tech switch it old school, or even the artist switch old school. I mean, whatever you want to do, but this kind of does it all. The ES8 or the ES5, as we just showed you, that one, you know, does a lot as well, but this is, as far as MIDI controllers, like I said, would probably be the Cadillac way of doing this. So right now we've got the screen showing where it's wireless A is the main output, and we've got wireless B main output, and we've got wireless A with the spare, and then we've got wireless B with the spare. And again, you can customize it to say whatever you want there, and you customize the color of the LEDs, which is pretty neat. Okay, so we have everything set up here. We want to go to devices first and set up, you know, the MIDI devices we're talking to. So right now we have device 2 as the Lehle MIDI channel. This mini effect gizmo, don't worry about that for this video's purposes, but the device 2, Lehle 3 at 1, we have it to MIDI channel 2. Good. Control switcher, MIDI channel 3. Good. So now presets. Right now we're down to preset 17 just for the sake of this video. And we have the Lehle PC command set to 0 because the RJM we already set up the Lehle and the PC commands with the Boss ES5, and the RJM sends them a little bit differently. So 0 is technically 1 on the ES5. I'm sure there's a logical reason for that in an in-depth thing, but I'm no MIDI genius, and this is how we're describing it. So PC's command is set to 0. You'll hit new action right here, which will prompt a new action. The action type is going to be a CC toggle because we're sending a CC command to the Voodoo Live control switcher. We select the device there, the control switcher. CC number, we're sending 80, just the same as we just showed you on the ES5. So CC number is 80 and the value's the on value is 0. So the other cool thing is you can name the switch up here, what it says on the screen. We got wireless A main, and you can also set up the LED color, and we have green because on the Lehle switch A with output 1, the light is green. switch B on output 2 is, yeah, it's like a yellow orange. There's no orange, so we're just gonna click yellow on this one, and so it's output 1 and input 2 or input B. So if I don't know if I said that right the first time, but anyways, so we're just matching the Lehle is essentially what we're doing. You can set it to whatever you want. So now we'll go to B again. Lehle, PC command is 1, which says we want to use input B. And the control switch toggles are the same. Just realizing this, we can do a new action because we didn't set this up for the mute. So just to show you doing it live here. Control switcher, CC value is it's 81. CC number is that, and then we'll just do 120 because that is telling it that, or I'm sorry, 0, because that is telling it we don't want it to be muted. So we'll do that for all of these. Again, that's wireless B, main output, main quad cortex. Then wireless A. On the spare quad cortex, we have the LED to blue because anytime output 2 is being used on the Lehle, the LED is blue. Again, we're just matching that. The PC command is 2 on here. Again, it was 3 on the ES5, but the way this is set up, it's got to be 2. 120 is the value because it's telling you to hit that switch and change it to the quad cortex spare. And again, we'll just go ahead and telling it not to mute anything. Control switcher 81, 0. And now this is the switch to wireless B, leaving the spare on. And let's do just for good measure. Okay, now let's set up the mute if you want to do that. Preset 21 we'll just do for the time being. Again, do this to whatever you guys want to do. Doesn't matter. The world is your oyster in this sense. Number 81. So that's a 120 because we're muting everything. Again. All right. Yep. Realized I did that wrong. But anyways, that's it. Then you'll hit transfer and write the changes to your device. Okay, so we want to set the MIDI channel. As we said earlier when defining this rack, this is set to MIDI channel 2. So here's how you do that. You unplug the power, and before you power it on, you're going to hold down this left foot switch. And you let go. So the way this operates is that when you hold it down, this foot switch, when you're powering it on, these two lights will blink back and forth up to 16 times. You let go of the foot switch after the MIDI channel. So as you saw earlier, this went on, and we let go, meaning it's MIDI channel 2. We're golden. So within this rack, this is just so you can see everything better, being that the Lehle isn't as visible on the rack that we have. Anyways, within the rack, there is a MIDI cable coming from a MIDI through box hitting the MIDI input of the Lehle. So the way that is a special MIDI to TRS cable. Pin 2 is, or the tip goes to pin 4 on this one. So you just can, if you were looking for custom length cables of these, like you don't want us to build the rack for you, it's cool. We're not going to take it personally. But if you want us to build like the MIDI cable for you so that you can incorporate in your rack, we have these available on our website. If you want to check that out, pretty cool stuff. Build it to whatever length you want. With these nifty right angle MIDI plugs that allow you to adjust the cable exit position, and these super low profile TRSs. Okay. Anyways, We're obviously doing this on the Boss ES5. So MIDI out goes there. TRS plugs into the Lehle for the MIDI switching. And we are ready to go. So this responds to program changes. Again, I'm not sure if it does take CC commands. I don't believe it does based on the manual, but if it does, that's pretty cool. And I hope someone teaches me how to do that. Anyways, but we're gonna do this all with the program changes. Another important note for the way that we're using this is this has got the Lehle 3-at-1 has 3 different modes. We're using this in mode 1, which is 3 inputs and 2 outputs. Mode 1 being when you hit this foot switch once, the green light's on, meaning it's input 1 or input A and output 1. When you hit this again, it's going to be input A on output 2, and the light will be blue, just like that. Then if you hit this, you got the orange, they call it yellow light. This means that it's input B, output 1. You hit it again and it's blue, so that'll be input B, output 2. This, so on and so forth. Input C with the red light, output 1 with the blue light means output 2, input C. So that's that. Okay, so the way this is set up is this is input A, or input, A, output 1, meaning wireless A, output 1, main quad cortex. So you hit that and you'll see that light go on. We'll show you how to set this up for input B, output 1. So wireless B, main quad cortex, which is what we want this to be. So what you do is you send the program change, which is already done on this ES5 side. So you send the program change, hit right, it sends it, right? Nothing happens. Since we want output B, input B, output 1, you just hold this down and it'll start flashing, and then you let go. It remembers that program change 2 recalls input B, output 1. So we'll go back to this. This should illuminate green for the input A, output 1, and it does. Then boom. Okay. Now, and this part was a little bit trickier, if you want to say that. So switch 3 on the Boss ES5, as we covered, is what we want to do for input wireless A and quad cortex spare. So to do that, as we have this programmed, we'll just show you for good measure here. We'll enter the patch MIDI 1. As you see, it's channel 2, program change 3. So we're gonna hit right, right, right to send that message to the Lehle 3-at-1. Now you want the green light illuminated because when you hit it again, it's gonna switch to blue, which means input A, output 2. So we're gonna press that and hold, and it'll start flashing. Wait till it's done, then let go. So that's programmed. So now I'm gonna hit switch 1 just to show you that it's gonna go to green, and it does. Now I'm gonna hit switch 3 on the ES5, and this should illuminate blue, and it does. So you repeat that step for 4. So for good measure, I'll show you on this, edit, enter, enter, and you'll see channel 2, program change 4. So we're gonna hit right, right, right. We're gonna hit this, so the orange light's on, meaning right now it's input B, output 2, or output 1. We want this to illuminate blue to signify output 2 to hit our spare quad cortex. Program change has already been set, hold it down, and it's switching. Let go. So now, just for good measure, we will hit 1, this will go green, input A, output 1. This will go yellow or orange, which is input B, output 1. Now we're going to hit switch 3 on the ES5, which this will go to blue, signifying input A, output 2. Then 4, which will signify input B, output 2. Boom, boom. Done. That's all you got to do. Okay, so now just go over the presets that we did on the computer. As you can see, it's programmed to show us if the ding light. Okay, so wireless A, main, wireless B, main, wireless A, spare, wireless B, spare. pretty cool. That's why I'm calling this the Cadillac of the MIDI switchers for this. So, and as you'll see, we'll hit 1 here, green light on, yellow light on, blue light, blue light. So it's programmed the way it should be. Quick and easy. Just to show the light switching, right now we'll focus on the Voodoo Lab control switcher, because obviously you can't see the Lehle from here. So 1, this AB light should be off because it's channel A. When it's illuminated, it's channel B. And the mute obviously off because we're not muting anything. And 2, same thing, because we're just switching the inputs, has nothing to do with the outputs. Once you hit 3, you see that illuminates because we are now on output B, which is Quad Cortex spare. 4, same thing. So we just change the inputs, still on output B. And then 5 here, this will showcase us the mute. Again, nothing changes there because we don't have a program to change anything there. It just mutes everything. So there we go. We covered this using some larger footprint MIDI switchers, and just to give you an idea of how this can be done in even a smaller footprint, you can use, there's 2 devices I'd like to bring up. One is the Disaster Area MIDI Baby 3. Now that is, like, in my opinion, the smallest MIDI switcher for this type of setup, and you can set up, there's 3 switches on it. You can set up 1 switch to be, you know, input A, and then 1 switch for input B, obviously both having output to the main Quad Cortex. And then the 3rd switch, you could just make a universal switch all outputs to B. So, or something like that. I don't know. Another one is the Disaster Area DMC4. It's got 4-foot switches, so you can essentially do the same thing we just did on a little, a much smaller box, and that thing is very nice. And again, these MIDI switchers can be used basically with anything that can send PC and CC commands. So if you're, maybe you don't have a tech and you're a player and you just want to be able to switch that and make your guitar change and then switch that down below at your foot while calling up different presets and things like that, you can do that with any MIDI foot controller, really. As long as it sends PC and CC commands, you're golden. So again, there's a full write-up in the blog on our website and the description below, giving you the pertinent values to set everything up and hopefully make your life a little easier setting something like this up before a tour or a gig and giving you more time to play. So we hope you enjoyed everything. If you can shoot us a like, hit subscribe. Until next time.